Hello everyone, welcome back to Speaking Spurs with me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham. And today is a massive day for this channel because this is the first time I can come to you officially doing a video with over 1,000 subscribers. So massive thank you to everyone that's supported the channel so far. The application is currently in with YouTube to see if we can get this to the next level, which means I'll be able to do things like live streaming when the games are on, so you can hear me waffle on about exactly what I think whilst we're playing. It means you'll be able to post live comments that will come up along the side of the screen and have the discussions with myself and each other during the games, which is fantastic. I was going to do a load of shout outs, but there are so many of you that have been here right from the beginning, supporting and commenting. You know exactly who you are. I comment back to the majority of the stuff that you write on here. Massive thank you to the family as well. It's been 9 months. That's how long we've been up and running this channel. So massive thank you. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Post a like and comments after the video. So let's get into it. Great news in the sense that the first team training area has reopened. Things are still a little bit strict in there. Players within the Premier League as well, because of all the COVID outbreak and stuff at clubs. When I spoke about Manchester United, Leicester and Aston Villa have had their COVID outbreaks. Our under-23s area had sadly been closed as well. The under-23s got sent home because of their outbreak. So the Premier League has introduced a rule now that every single player up and down, when entering the training grounds, they will have to take a lateral flow test before they can enter the training ground, as well as their compulsory PCR tests that they do twice a week. It's sensible. It makes sense. It stops the possibility of the virus getting into the training grounds, and hopefully the Premier League, fingers crossed, won't have to postpone too many games. On that as well, Conte's been speaking in his press conference for the upcoming game against Leicester. He said Spurs are still struggling with COVID. You know, we know that another player had contracted COVID in that time. We do have 2 players that had returned as of yesterday. He said, like, some players have returned, but the club must be patient as the players build up their fitness levels. And as we know, COVID severely weakens the body. If any of you out there have had it, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. It really takes it out of you, wipes you out. You can't do any training in that time anyway, so you've not just got that little bit of lag to catch up on, you've also got the effects that the virus has on the body, and it wipes you out. So these guys have got a bit of work to do to get up to shape, which is why Conte had people back in doing double sessions. I should imagine those people doing the double sessions aren't the ones that had COVID, because you can't put too much strain on these players. So when he was talking, he said Thursday, Friday and Saturday they had no sessions at all. They were working Sunday, but not many players. They couldn't fill it up with too many youngsters because the under-23s obviously had their own problems going on. And then he was saying today 16 players from the first team trained, as well as some more youngsters involved in that as well. And then when we're talking about the Rennes game, so obviously that got postponed in the end. Apparently cheekily by us at first, but then UEFA come out and backed us and confirmed that the game was off. So the current situation, in the eyes of what Conte is saying, is that game couldn't be played, and this is the reason he gave. And when you actually look at it, it's quite sensible. So all that we got told, it was because of COVID cases that we couldn't fulfil the fixture, even though by the rules we had enough players to fulfil the game. But Conte has come out and said the government closed the training ground, so we could not train, therefore we couldn't play. We don't have fault in this. We deserve to play and to try to get ourselves to the next round. And the reason why I sympathise with Conte on this is because, if you can't train because your training ground is closed and the first team players are not allowed to enter there, you haven't got enough players to train. The first team couldn't train, most of them at home. So how can you play? You can't prepare for the game properly. You can't just force players to go out there and play the game. So we do have some sort of case. I mean, there could be arguments that, look, you're professional players and you could have done all this over, Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever software they want to use to have the meetings. You don't have to have them in front of everyone and have them present. And they're professional footballers, so they should be able to play with one another because they train most days. However, that's not the way it works in professional sport. You prepare your games, you train as a team in the way that you've spoken about in your tactics meetings. So, look, I completely sympathise 100%. But I also understand from the other point of view why Rennes will be annoyed. And the Athletic have come out and said that we have offered to play the Europa Conference League game in France as a compromise just to get the game played. Now, that tells me, if that is the case, Spurs genuinely think there is a possibility that we could be the team to have to forfeit the game and will suffer the 3-0 loss. So as a desperate attempt to give ourselves a chance of going through, we would rather play it in France than just leave it up to the board. So that offer apparently has been put across to Rennes to hopefully give us another foothold. And then if Rennes reject that, it does then make it look like they're being the difficult ones, because as I said, they've got nothing to lose. If they get deducted points for being difficult, they still finish second in the group. If they don't play the game, it doesn't matter. They finish top of the group. Like, we can't finish top by beating them. So they're in a great scenario. They can be as difficult as they want. But all we can do is plead our case and try and help ourselves. We'll see where that one goes. I genuinely couldn't tell you either way where I think it's going to go now. Yesterday, I thought it was going to be a case of we're more likely to have to forfeit the game, but the fact that we are clearly making every possible attempt to make this game go ahead tells me that there could be a little more to this. There could be more twists and turns along the way. So we shall see. Right. Now, the reason most of us are here, let's talk about transfer stories. So we'll start with one that has resurfaced, and that is Adama Traore. So we spoke about him this summer. Nuno worked with him. He wanted him. He didn't get him. Wolves were valuing him at quite a high price. So talking about him, he is back on the radar. Rumours are Conte actually wanted him to join Chelsea when he was manager there. His contract at Wolves is on until 2023. So he's got a bit of time left. However, from here on out, value it's just going to go down, going to decrease, not going to get the offer they want. So is it the right time to cash in on him? We shall see. He is the top dribbler in the Premier League at the moment. He has 73 successful take-ons in the Premier League this season. Now, that's a pretty big stat. However, he has no goals this season whatsoever, and we do know end product tends to be his downfall. He's very, very inconsistent. The one thing I do like about him, though, is his ability to get up the pitch. He's an absolute battering ram. His athleticism is incredible. He's got a good skill set on him. He beats people most times he has the ball. And most of the time, you double up on him, if not triple. So what that does, as long as you can get him to pass the ball along the floor, he doesn't have to be a great crosser. Get him to take people on, get players near him, get simple passes. They overload on him. It creates space for someone else. So it doesn't have to be putting crosses in. He doesn't have to be great. You just need to utilise him in the right way. Look, he is very inconsistent, and I would take him. I don't think he's going to be guaranteed to be a starter. Conte will probably be the man to get the best out of him. And if Conte wants him, I think us as fans, based on what Conte's done already with the squad in the shape it's in, I think we need to trust his judgment and give Traore a chance. There's going to be a lot of you out there that have massive reservations over him because of his end product. And I'm sure you will tell me below in the comments. So please feel free to do so, because I do want to get a rounded opinion of what we think as Spurs fans. Do we want him? Do we not? I mean, I'd be willing to take a punt on him just because he could fit the formation. He can play anywhere on the right-hand side. And, you know, his strength alone makes him a relatively reliable person to defend. He's very strong. It'll take a lot to get past him. And if you do, he's got the pace to catch you. Whereas on the opposite side, he's got the strength and the pace to outburn you all day long. So you could actually see him be a powerful version of Victor Moses like he did at Chelsea. He could be the guy with the pace, with the strength, with the power, the ability to get up and down the pitch for 90 minutes, because let's face it, his fitness levels are unreal. Could be an answer. Moving on to the next one. Conte's first signing could be, and we are edging Man City on this one, it is a Bologna player, believe it or not. So another Serie A link, and that player is Matthias Svanberg. I believe I've pronounced that right. Cha-ching, well done me. So Matthias Svanberg from Bologna. Look, he's an exciting central midfielder. He represents Sweden already at international level. He is 22 years old, which, as I've said many times, seems to be our favourite age for players. So it's obviously that scouting network, 22, they've started to come into some sort of footballing maturity. It makes sense. But yeah, another 22-year-old on our radar. Apparently Paratici is already a big fan and followed him closely whilst he was at Juventus. No fee has been reported yet at all. There's no talks of how much he could possibly cost anyone. He came through the ranks at Malmo and then made his debut for those in 2016. And over the next 2 years, he established himself as a first-team player. So between the ages of sort of like 19, 20, up to 21 or where he is now. Yeah, he came through the ranks. He came through the ranks at Malmo, made his debut for those in 2016, and over the next 2 years really established himself as a first-team player there. Then in 2018, shock horror, the top leagues around Europe started to take a look, and it was Bologna that managed to persuade him to come across, and they took the punt on him. And now the next stage in his career could possibly be taking place as he may move to Tottenham Hotspur to be Antonio Conte's first signing, and we are edging Man City for that. So it just tells you how highly rated Svanberg is at the moment, and the fact that he's already excelling at international level is a good sign because we've already seen him on the international stage. The next player to talk about is the bigger one, Lorenzo Insigne. So you may have seen stories, I'm sure you have, to be honest. I've seen them over the last few days. Didn't want to report it straight away because I didn't think it was concrete enough, which I believe I said at the end of the last video. But over the last couple of days, there's more and more reports coming out from several sources, and some of them more reliable, which is why I've decided to finally report it. So look, he's 30 years old now. He's been at Napoli for pretty much all his career. His youth career with them, he's been out on loan during his youth and then really established himself with Napoli. He's been a fantastic servant to the club. He always scores about somewhere between 8 and 12 goals every season, right? Last season was a massive step up for him. He performed ridiculously well in Serie A, scoring 19 goals in that competition. He also registered 7 assists. Look, at the end of the day, he's a talented player, can play as a winger or a striker, and this is where it's helpful. He's good in either sense. He's quite clinical. I mean, 19 goals is no poor feat, and that's just in the league. And what we've seen from our wingers, Sonny tends to post reasonable numbers. Last season was another good season for Sonny. But on the flip side, players like Lamela, Lucas Moura, Steven Bergwijn, they hadn't actually been doing the same on the opposite side and registering the kind of numbers that Sonny has. So Insigne could offer us a player that finally adds a little bit of extra bite. Somebody to get us goals from another area, because just having them from two players hasn't been enough, as we can see with Harry Kane not scoring at the moment. There hasn't been enough goals, and if you have an extra outlet to score those goals, it makes up for that time that Kane drops off form or Sonny drops off form. It's always been one of our biggest concerns since Christian Eriksen left. I feel like when Eriksen was at the club, and we'll talk about him in a minute actually, when Eriksen was there, if Kane wasn't playing well or he was injured, Eriksen, Ali, Sonny would all pick up goals from midfield areas. And at the moment, it just seems to be Son or no one. So Insigne could be a really, really viable option. It could see somebody go out the door. Most likely would be Steven Bergwijn, because I think Lucas Moura is a good enough squad player to offer us decent competition for Insigne. Whereas with Bergwijn, although it'd be great to keep him at the club because of his age, I think selling Moura at this point would be a mistake. So let me know your views on that one below. That one will be interesting. Now, moving on to Christian Eriksen, and this will be the last story just because he's a former player of ours. Obviously, he's been, you might have seen that he's been training on his own for one of his local clubs in Denmark. They've allowed him to train there whilst he tries to recover and get himself up to some sort of fitness. So because of the cardiac arrest that he suffered, he currently has an ICD implanted in him, which is a implantable cardioverter defibrillator. Essentially, if his heart plays up, boom, 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 that kicks in, keeps him going, similar to what Daley Blind has. Now, the issue that Inter Milan have is that you cannot play in Serie A with one of those in your body. So what will have to happen is contract will need to be terminated. Inter Milan apparently are looking into releasing him because it's not fair for either of them. Completely waste of wages for them. He's not able to play. So it makes no sense whatsoever. So it looks like they're going to release him from his contract. Now, what does this mean for Eriksen moving forward? Who knows? The fact is he's going to have to train and see how much of a viable option it is for him to continue his playing career. Obviously, Daley Blind has managed to do it, and at a decent level, might I add. So could Christian Eriksen make a comeback at a top level? Is Tottenham the sort of club that would turn around and offer him the chance to come back? I think if he was to come back on a pay-as-you-play contract, that could be viable. I don't think it will be any time this season. Possibly it's something to monitor as the summer goes on. Is he going to be offered maybe a contract for a club in Denmark? It's a lower level of football, but it's a good opportunity for him to get out there and teams to see what he can really do. And then hopefully, if it all works out, and we hope it does, because you don't want to see a player have to retire. We've just seen it with Sergio Aguero, one of the greats in Premier League history, because he scored one of the most dramatic goals you're ever going to see to win the title against their rivals. You don't want to see another guy have to retire because of heart conditions. So would you take Eriksen back? I know it was a bit rocky the way he left the club, but that's partly down to Daniel Levy for not tying him down to a longer contract, or indeed selling him when there was bigger offers there. Would you take him back? Let me know below. I think I would. I think it'd be worth a punt if we could get him on a pay-as-you-play or a cut-price contract. I think it'd be a great opportunity for us once he's got back to some decent fitness level to maybe ask him to come back over and train at Spurs Lodge, and then we can monitor him and see if he really is able to play at the top level still, and then you kind of get first dibs on him, because you keep it on the hush-hush. Well, obviously his agent will be circulating things, but as much as you can, you keep it quiet, see how he's going on. Who knows? Who knows? I thought I'd leave that one with you. So there's your updates for today. First team training opened. Adama Traore back on the radar. Conte says we're still struggling with COVID and have to be patient. Offered the Rennes game to take place in France. Insigne being our top target. And Christian Eriksen begins recovery. Thank you for watching today. I am Kieran from Speaking Spurs. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment. And until tomorrow, come on you Spurs.